Well, here we have a picture of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran. You can find him on the internet. He's there at his yeshiva, Torah Tachen. He calls it a Torah Tachen. Chen means grace. For advanced Kabbalistic studies, this is the man who has written this book. Now we'll go over here today, and as we saw in the last lecture, Rabbi Mimran was teaching us about the power of prayer, and particularly about the power of the Hebrew letters. Now over here in part 7, he wants to say a word of caution. So let's see what he has to say. This is a piece of Gemara in the Masechtas Sota. He says, Reish Lacha said, the Holy Spirit tells them, so they shall increase, and so they shall burst forth. And he says like this, because of that, the physical side of them becomes weakened. So as the energy of non-physical reality begins to take over, that weakens the physical reality. So we're seeing like this is that in one sense, at least from this idea, is what we want to achieve in this life is a connection to eternity. But eternity is not physical. So naturally, the more one is connected to eternity, the more weaker that physicality of the person becomes. So he said, because of that, the physical side of them becomes weakened. And once the physical is weakened, when it's weakened to the extreme, the soul and spirit can attach with an energy of holiness. Now, sometime in my life, some things happened, some deaths and different things happened, and it broke me tremendously. But in other words, I was beyond power to be able to do anything about it, and this is part of what the reality is. And it seems to me that he's saying, without getting into the more of the detail of what Rabbi Mimran is going to say, this provides an opening for attachment to the Most High. So let's see what he says over here. He says the control of the mind one has during the meditative experience will enhance the spiritual experiences tremendously. Now he said he concentrated on the word the control, because that's really the hardest thing. Previously, in the previous lecture, he talked about the concept of where your mind is where you are. So if one can control that mind, which he's been talking about all the way through this, and previously he was talking about controlling it to the extent that you start looking carefully at all of the letters and concentrating on them. They will take you beyond this world. That's what he says. So he says when a person starts to have these tremendous experiences, these are associated with the states of consciousness experienced by prophets and mystics. The senses are blocked out, and all sensation, both internal and external, is eliminated. Believe me, this is really definitely possible, but takes a lot of practice. In such states of consciousness, the feelings of the divine is strengthened, and a person can experience an intense feeling of closeness to God, to eternity. Meditations of this type can bring a person to the most profound and beautiful experiences imaginable. Now, I'm thinking about myself, and I'd like to do this myself. It's very difficult in the world that we live. You have to have the time and the security, or force yourself into the time and the security that it takes in order to be able to practice the things he talks about. So he says a word of caution is in order at this point. He says the experiences that a person can have in these states of consciousness can be so marvelous that he may not want to return to his normal state of consciousness. Now imagine that you really have transported yourself, because where your mind is where you are, where your thoughts are. He said it is possible for a person to become so completely lost in the mystic state, actually swallowed up by it. So it's possible to become totally consumed in the eternal. Therefore, before exploring these highest states, be sure that you have something to bring you down safely. It is very much like flying a plane. Taking off is exhilarating, but before you take off, you had better know how to land again. So for this reason, most texts on Jewish meditation stress that before embarking on the higher levels, which he's given us a technique in the last lesson, concentrating on the letters of the words, a person should have a master. So that is a master teacher. Then if he goes up and does not know how to come down or does not want to, the master will be able to talk him down. Now, these are different ideas where you find a master. Well, Rabbi Mimran is one of those masters, but very difficult to reach Rabbi Mimran because he's all over. Other sources indicate that mystics would actually take an oath to return to a normal state of consciousness at the end of their meditative sessions. Then, even if they were not inclined to return, they would be bound by their own oath. Now, this is a whole interesting idea that Rabbi Mimran wants to put in at the very beginning. Let's look at his blurb. The blurb says the control of the mind has during the meditative experience. Controlling your mind is all that his book is talking about, or being able to grasp the whole, because things happen suddenly in this world. They could throw us in many, many different directions, but if we have the understanding of what we need to do, we could put it back together again. So the meditative experience will enhance the spiritual experiences tremendously. That's Rabbi Mimran here. This is Baruch Fleischman at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel.